Hybrid I'm KHOU 11 meteorologist Pat Calvin here with an update on what's going on in the tropics as development is actually imminent as we get into the start of the upcoming week. It has been a pretty quiet few weeks for us so far, but things are starting to change in a hurry. We've got two areas, one in red, one in yellow. The one in red, obviously the one that is more imminent for development, a 90% chance as we go through the next 24 to 48 hours. And now a second wave coming in from the west coast of Africa behind this. This has low odds for developing, but not zero, so that'll be worth watching as we get into the upcoming week as well. Let's start off with our one that is more likely to develop. We've called it Invest 92L, and right now it's got sustained winds around 30 miles per hour. It's moving pretty quick though to the west at about 20 miles per hour. Now it's been a while since we've talked about Invest, so let's just give you a little refresher on exactly what that is. You know, we're familiar with what a hurricane is, with what a tropical storm is. A tropical depression is when it's not quite a tropical storm, winds are still pretty weak, and then the step before that is the Invest. So it's disorganized, it doesn't have a concentrated area of low pressure with thunderstorms around it, but it's definitely something that's worth watching, and it's a tropical wave that has the potential for developing. That's what we're watching for right now. So we do have model plots for this. Let's see what they do with it. We have two different solutions. One cluster takes it to the west, and another cluster, which really isn't that impressive, takes the storm to the north. And it does look like the more westerly track is going to be favored. It's just a matter of how far west it goes. Does it go into the Caribbean, or does it make it to the Leeward Islands here and then take that turn up towards the north? Still a lot of questions remain, but it does look like we're going to go with that westward track, which takes it a little farther to the south. And if it does make it into the Caribbean, that's the point when we're going to have to start to watch it pretty closely here in Houston. Now, the reason why we see the differences in the model tracks just has to do with how the models are handling the storm. The models that develop the storm faster and make it stronger take the storm to the north. The ones that keep it kind of weaker, maybe a little more disorganized, they kind of keep it on that south track. So there's the good news, is that if it does take that south track, it is likely to stay fairly disorganized. Very unusual, though, to see development in the main development region, or the MDR, this time of year. Now, first, let's just talk about what the MDR is. It's this huge expansive area in the Atlantic from Africa all the way into the Caribbean. And the reason why we call it the main development region is because typically during the peak of hurricane season, that's where tropical systems come from. But again, the peak of hurricane season, not June. So that's very unusual. In fact, there's only been like 7 cases of developing storms during the month of June in this area, going back to 1851. So a very unusual setup here, and we are likely to see our next named system of the year as we get into the upcoming week. Now, typically for the month of June, this is where we expect to see some development down towards the Caribbean, into the Gulf, and up the East Coast. That does not look like it's going to be the case here as we go through at least the next week or two. It looks like any type of development that does happen is going to be out in this part of the world. Now, the reason why development isn't typical for this area is because water temperatures are usually too cool to support it. Right now, that's not the case. We've got water temperatures that are about 2 to 5 degrees above where they should be for this time of year. And it's not just that, but there's a lack of wind shear as well. Notice a lot of the wind shear stays to the north of our developing area, and notice by Thursday the models are picking up on that closed area of circulation again just below the areas with highest wind shear. So the conditions are favorable for some sort of development here. We've got warm water, we've got low wind shear, and there's no dry air. So those are the 3 ingredients that we look for tropical development. So a really unusual setup here that is favorable for development. As we put the forecast into motion, this is using the European computer model. The red blobs indicate areas of spin, and then the faint black lines here, just those are pressure lines. So when you start to see them close off and a little closer together, that indicates just a more organized system. So definitely the one in the front, which again is the one that we're expecting to develop first, that seems to be a little more organized by the time we get to Wednesday. The one behind it, kind of trailing in its wake, seems to struggle, and that kind of goes along with what the National Hurricane Center is thinking at this point with those low development odds. So that's the one that we're going to be watching. Bottom line, we are now in hurricane season. It is time to be prepared and on top of your plans, because you never know when the next storm gets here. We'll be doing these updates more and more as we go through the coming weeks.